doing everything. Is anyone multi-channeling right now? Lithuania is multi-channeling. I know Bulgaria is multi-channeling. Someone's doing there.
We're everywhere.
Germany, Romania, Serbia, yes. Okay, so who has all of those? 12. Anyone has 12? Croatia?
2.
2. Anyone got 12? 2? Okay, sold for 2. 3. And you know, all of these channels, it looks like a lot of things that you can do, but all of these can be found for free as well. So you can have free advertising in newspapers, free advertising in videos, articles, blogs, and so on and so forth. So you can also prepare your content, and you can use a service which will distribute everything automatically. So you don't have to spend 5 hours a day looking through all of these channels and feeding them all. You just have to find the right service, and if you are interested in this, then we can facilitate this process, and we can find you the services that will help you to facilitate all of these, to work with all of these channels. You just have to let us know. So don't be afraid of engaging people in all of the channels. Like Steph said, of course people nowadays turn to their phones, to their mobile devices, to their laptops, because there's just so much information and no one trusts one single source. Even if it says this is written by God, someone will check something else. So don't be afraid to engage.
And if you create really rich media assets like a video, then the perfect thing to do would be to house that on YouTube, on Vimeo, which is an alternative to YouTube. You'd house it on your website. There's reasons for that we'll come on to within search engine marketing. You would find as many places you've invested your money in producing a nice bit of video. Why not put it across as many channels as you can in order to influence people? There's no reason why you wouldn't do that to get the maximum return on investment from that investment in creating that asset, that video. So that's just the kind of approach, the kind of a mindset that we're trying to adopt by implementing a multi-channel approach. Just a few more statistics here. Really the belief behind multi-channel is exceptional. So 65% I think is the key percentage figure here for a statistic, showing that a lot of brands and a lot of organisations really deem multi-channel customer to be far more valuable than a single channel customer. So if you've got people that are not only following you on Twitter and retweeting your content, but they're also going through to your website, they're subscribed to your email database to receive your newsletters, that's a far more valuable person that's going to be far more on board with your messaging than somebody who's just maybe come onto your website, responded to a survey, and then bounced off onto another piece of content. So that's sort of the key, in terms of the backdrop and providing more of an argument for the multi-channel approach.
So, excuse me, I would just ask you again to just a little bit slowly. Thank you.
When we look at the multi-channel approach, the key considerations that we go through are listed here, and this is a process called channel planning. The two main considerations are first and foremost cost considerations. What does our budget allow us to actually do? Can we invest in an email wave? Can we or do we need to keep things more simple by just issuing a press release and start to do media liaison to get editorial coverage? What is actually the budget with which we can actually start to delineate which channels we can actually target? So that's obviously quite an integral one and quite a basic consideration, because the cost defines the type of channel we can invest in. But alongside that is also the internal costs to the organisation. So, for example, with social media, are you actually set up to facilitate a campaign in social media? Do you have somebody within your organisation that can actually, keep online, post comments, tweet every day, think about what might be interesting for the community to tweet and encourage discussion? That's a lot of time investment, and therefore, a lot of off the bottom line when it comes to somebody's salary, when it comes to keeping the community engaged. So organisational and internal structure is a really key consideration, which is often overlooked. A lot of people jump in and sort of say, we need to do social media, we need to be seen to be doing social media, but don't actually think about the internal process and the restructuring that they might have to go through to actually facilitate a decent campaign. Married alongside the cost considerations are the suitability and appropriateness of the messaging that we're trying to deliver via the channel. So For example, an email wave is going to be something that's quite simple. There's a call to action at the end of the email to facilitate a next step. You know, it's not just going to be the email wave, there's usually a call to action. But the messaging within the email will actually be very, very simple because it's a broadcast medium. Whereas social networks, in contrast, allow you to have much longer term engagement. It's much more about the dialogue. You can nurture relationships. So if the objective is to actually get at more advocacy from the people that you're outreaching to, then more of a social campaign might actually be worthwhile in terms of building those relationships through dialogue and actually strengthening them through advocacy. So that's sort of an additional consideration when we're channel planning as to what might be the most appropriate channel to implement our campaigns across. Just a little exercise now, just to start to think about how different channels actually affect behaviour and affect people's, you know, how personal the communication is that we're delivering, how personal it is to an individual. So we've got a few different types of communications approach listed on the slide. I just want to take a minute to rank them in order of how personal they are. So starting with the most personal, what's actually going to be, you know, the most personal format for the communication, all the way down to the least personal format for communication, just to sort of get an idea about how different channels affect the behaviour and the personal opinions of an individual that we're trying to reach.
Can you vote again with raising hands? Worked well yesterday. Okay, who is for posting a tweet as being the most personal one? No one? Which is the most personal one then?
Meeting face to face.
Meeting face to face? Okay, so this number one. What is number two then?
Calling someone.
Calling someone. What if you pocket dial someone? Is that personal enough? Happens. Okay, number three.
Writing a letter.
Letter or email?
No, letter.
Letter is number three. Okay. Then number four is email.
Yeah.
Then
Five is sending a text message.
5, 6.
Facebook and tweets as the last.
Very good.
And what if you want to communicate with someone from the European Commission? Do you post on his Facebook something? If you have their Facebook, you can post them a photo of the 3 monkeys, and you can call them, you know, make a call for action on their Facebook with the photo of the 3 wise monkeys. Why not? You all direct attention to them. So posting a tweet is what? The last one? Okay, so let's see the results.
That's bang on.
Yep, we got it. Great job.
And exactly as Martin says, that just highlights that the person that we're trying to reach, the objective of the campaign, will very much focus on the type of personal type of communication we want to achieve. So, you know, a great example of if you want to, you know, outreach to the WHO or the European Commission, then you're going to take a very different format to you know, more of a general blanket awareness campaign, which, you know, something like Twitter and Facebook would be ideal to represent and facilitate that. Putting that into context, so just to build a little bit further on Raquel's presentation earlier, a great example, I'm biased in saying that, but a great example is the World Hepatitis Day campaign with the 3 wise monkeys. So we've got a great platform which is a social-based platform. Raquel mentioned the interactive map that we've generated. Everybody that tweets their photo of the 3 wise monkeys, Twitter will recognise the location in the world and plot them on the map, so it's an interactive map. And it also draws the photos into sort of a stream for each location. And also it's going to encourage users to actually get involved in their own time and post their own photos, as we've discussed. So that's a great asset. We've invested a lot of money in building that, and it's a great piece of technology. But we don't want to just rest on our website, because it's not going to be enough to capture the imaginations of everybody. It's not going to be enough to capture the types and volumes of traffic that are going to make it a good return on investment. So the whole thing is built in something called responsive design. So no matter what device you access it from, whether it be an iPad, an iPhone, desktop, PC, whatever it is, then it actually resizes the whole website to make it optimized for the device that you're logging into. And that's a good way of not having to invest additional money in building a mobile site. It automatically recognizes the type of device and looks the best it can on that platform. It's also driving people through to a real-life experience. The real-life experience is the Guinness World Record. So if people actually get involved and actually do the Guinness World Record, then that's a great experience that's been inspired by the gallery. And finally, we're conducting PR outreach around the digital and social components, the photographs that we're receiving. So again, we've got another channel through newspapers, through magazines, that we're able to leverage the investment in creating the online tool. So, from initial investment of X amount of money, we've actually created a huge number of opportunities to engage with people, to put the message out there across different channels so that we can reach as many people as possible. That's it for multi-channel, so it's a principle-led presentation. I don't know if there's any immediate questions off the back of that or anything you want to go back over and explore deeper.
I didn't understand the sustainability, channel planning and sustainability.
I think that was suitability. So, suitability. So, this is really the point that depending on the objective and depending on how complex the messages that we want to send, it will be very much determined which channel we use as a result of that. So if it's a very simple message, email's great. If it's a much more complex message than a face-to-face interaction or an in-depth article in a magazine, might be much more appropriate. So depending on the complexity, we can identify different channels to outreach to.
And this new website is also calling to action because of the Guinness thing.
Exactly. So for everybody that tweets to the hashtag See Here Speak No, our system picks up the hashtag and automatically puts the photo into the gallery. But for every hashtag, we have an automated tweet that goes back to the sender to tell them about the Guinness World Record, to tell them about World Hepatitis Day, and how they can get more involved. So it is that very much that call to action, and it's also housed on the Alliance website as well as the Facebook page. So there's lots of opportunities to get involved in more of the content, and there's more content like videos and stuff that we're going to be producing, so getting people to be receptive to as many of those assets as possible is going to be key.
Do you have any more questions about multi-channeling? Is everyone familiar with the most famous one, the most used channels that are used right now to communicate, to convey any kind of messages? Everyone knows about Facebook, everyone knows about Twitter. You have a comment?
No, I have a question. It'd be very interesting to know, I think, how many organizations are on Facebook and how many organizations are on Twitter, for example, because these two actually seem to be the most famous ones, and so it'd be interesting to know how many, and then maybe why, if not, why not? Maybe it's a case that you don't have the resources, you need to be someone to be sending pictures and putting posts out there all the time, and you don't have that person. But it'd be very interesting as an exercise just to find out who's on Facebook and who's on Twitter, for instance.
You're on Twitter and Facebook.
Okay, so right hand Facebook, left hand Twitter. And then one leg I have a website, and another leg I have something else. Okay, we have Facebooks, we have Twitters. Facebook 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Everyone is pretty much on Facebook. And when I ask Facebook, I mean your organization's Facebook, not your personal Facebook with the photos from the sea and so on and so forth. And who is on Twitter? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And what do you use Facebook for your organizations? Do you post photos? Do you just have the Facebook? What do you do on Facebook? in Turkey. What do you use Facebook for? Okay, and what kind of content do you put? Photos, text?
That's for Sweden.
Okay, in Sweden?
Photos and events.
Okay, so photos, events, and then campaigns. Interesting information. Are you following your statistics from Facebook? Do you know how many people are liking them, reading them, sharing them? Do you follow your statistics? We will get to the Facebook and the Twitter engagement in a little while. I have a short presentation about ELPA, and I will show you some of our behind-the-scenes stuff that is happening. And I can tell you that, for example, for the past couple of weeks, from April 14th until today, the Facebook reach of ELPA jumped from 900 and something per day to 3,800 per day. And this is just in 2 weeks. Because we were posting information about EASL, information about the WHD, and some other kind of useful information, and not always information about liver diseases and what the type of work that we do. Sometimes we try to mix the content just to keep the page live and to communicate with more people so we get high reach. Yes? There's a microphone.
Many of you obviously have Facebook, but one of the things is your Facebook linked to the ELPA page, and is the ELPA page linked to your Facebook?
No.
I'm sure not.
I know whose Facebook is linked to ours because I'm following it, but I don't see you on our Facebook.
But yeah, the question is, whenever you receive an email from Martin, Seb, or someone else, do you really read those emails where it says, if you have Facebook, please link it? If you don't understand what's written there, like what is linked, you can just answer, I don't know what is linked and how we do that. Can you help us? So they can help you. This is their job, that's why they're paid for that, to help you. So whenever they send an email, you really don't understand what's all about, you just ask them.
Yep.
Because now we have a Facebook page, I'm sure you all have many other things, but they are simply not linked. It's the same with the NAM project that just was launched yesterday. It should be linked to your web pages, it should be linked with our Facebook, with the Alliance Facebook, and all the other things. So it's not big trouble, it's not lots of work for you. It's only 2 clicks away, but you have to know where to click. So ask those guys, they will tell you.
We will talk about this more later, so please be vigilant. Seb.
So, search engine marketing. Who's got a website? Good. Who writes copy for the website?
Content.
Content, copy, the words on the website. Great. So this is just a quick video around some of the typical types of conversations. It's a tongue-in-cheek video, it's meant to be a funny video, but it represents a lot of conversations that we tend to have.
I want to be #1 on Google. I need to be #1 on Google.
I'm sure we can help, but first I need to find out a little more about your website.
I just want to be #1 on Google.
Sure. I will need to ask you a few important questions. Can you tell me what keyword you want to be #1 for?
Credit cards. I want to rank #1 on Google for credit cards. Can you do it?
That's a very competitive keyword. Can you tell me a little more? What is your URL?
www.the-simple-credit-cards-made-easy-for-you.info. Can you get me #1?
How old is your domain?
1 week old. And I want to be #1 this week.
How many backlinks do you have?
I don't know.
Have you done any on page optimization?
I don't know.
Do you know what search engine optimization means?
I don't.
Do you know what a search engine is?
Hold on. Let me Google it.
Are you sure you know what you're talking about?
I want to be #1 on Google.
That represents almost a daily conversation. Everybody wants to be #1 on Google. So this next chapter really looks at search engine marketing. So what is that? Simply, it's how we increase our visibility on search engines. So not just Google, looking at Bing, Microsoft, looking at Yahoo, etc. And there are two main ways of being able to do search engine marketing. The first is around pay-per-click. PPC is how we refer to it in the UK. Google makes $75 million a day on pay-per-click advertising. So that's the little yellow box. When you do a search on Google, you have a little yellow box at the top, which is the advertisements, and you often have them down the side. There's no charge for being in those two positions until you click on that link, and then you get a cost for that click. For every click, then there is a cost that you receive to get that access content. So pay-per-click is one way of doing it. It can be, if you have a new website, an immediate way to get onto page 1 of Google because you paid to be in that top spot. But it's certainly not the best, and it's not the most. It's not the best way for a longer-term communications campaign to just simply pay to be in that top spot. Who clicks on the advertising links? Almost nobody. Why is that? Do you trust it?
Nope.
Because you feel like you're being sold to, you know you're being sold to. So the best way of conducting search engine marketing is through search engine optimization, which is referred to as SEO. And that basically means that the content that you've got is optimized for specific keywords. You're updating it regularly so that Google knows that it's a good, decent website, that there's going to be lots of fresh news, fresh content, and that pushes you right up the ranks so that you can get onto page 1 of Google. Being number 1 is pretty hard. Although that said, I think Hepatitis has around 52 million return results on Google, so there are millions and millions of pages of results, and there's very, very little in terms of advertising, in terms of keyword optimization. So there's quite a good opportunity for people, for organisations operating in this space to really shoot up the ranks. If you've got a website that's currently on page 2, 3, 4 of Google, you could very, very easily get onto page 1 through not a lot of investment. So there is that opportunity for those of you that do have websites. Google, just a quick bit of background, is by far and away the biggest search engine. In the UK, it's 91% of all searches conducted daily. That's a similar figure across Europe. But obviously there are other, you can't be in a market dominated by Google, so there are other ones like Yahoo and Bing that represent about 8.95% of all other search usage. The key thing here is online user habits. So where's the best place to hide a dead body? Page 2 of Google. 80% of people do not search past page 1 of Google. So if you're not on page 1, the likelihood is you've missed 80% of the people who are searching for you. That's a phenomenal figure. I mean, I go to page 2 when I'm researching or for clients, because sometimes we're in that space where we need to do a lot of research. But in terms of the people we're trying to reach, patients, lay audiences, 80% will not go past that first page. So that's a huge statistic to be aware of. It's also the fastest growing advertising medium, and it overtook TV back in 2009. So people often think that TV is the big advertising spend. It's not, it's online search marketing. I think BMW cars spend $500,000 a week to be in that top spot, which just shows you how competitive it is. This is a heat map, and it's actually through where people are looking. So this is a pair of glasses that have been put on people as they go on a search engine, and it tracks where they're looking on the page. So you've got a search engine results of all the different websites that come up. And the heat map represents the focal point of the eye, so where people tend to most be looking. And you can see the adverts on the right-hand side get very, very little attention. They're not really looked at. Whereas the top organic search, so the top non-advertising search, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth page results, are where everybody looking. That's where you want to be. If you've got a message, if you've got a call to action, if you've got a new campaign, you want to be right at the top so that physically people are looking at your content. So that's just quite a nice visual. I think given that people don't go onto page 2, that really brings to life the importance of actually being in that top spot and making sure your website is where people can see it. Just in terms of the importance, so we've looked at sort of the brand perception or the perception that your organisation has. If you're on that first page, then you're much more trusted than pages 2, 3, 4. So, you know, in terms of the level of information, the level of advocacy, that's much more important to be on page 1. It's just a go-to place for people. I mean, they, as we've said, they just don't go on to page 2. So the big question, how do we conduct search engine optimization? What are the key things we need to be doing? As you can see at the top, there's hundreds and hundreds of ways of conducting SEO, but there are some really important ones. So video content is indexed 52 times better than copy, than written words on Google. So if you've got a good video, make sure it's on your website, because video content will boost you massively through the current Google algorithm. What else can you do? You can make sure your content is regularly updated, so you can look at blogs, you can get a Twitter feed on your homepage, so if you're tweeting, you know, every day preferably, but at least a few times a week, Google will see that as new content on your website, because the Twitter feed is updating with every tweet that you give, so that's a nice easy way of doing it. How else can you do it? The big one is links. So if you've got, I don't know who links up to everybody else in this room, but you know, the more links that you have to other websites, the inbound links and outbound links, the better Google's going to optimize you again. So, you know, we've got a lot of advocacy, we've got a lot of connections in this room. Make sure you're linking up to the relevant websites to make sure that you've got that SEO. The other format is tags and keywords, which are vitally important. So don't have to worry too much about this. This gets quite techie, but anybody that's building your website for you will have keyword tags that they put into the website, so that Google can see what kind of content this is relevant for. So, you know, putting in simple words like hepatitis, treatment, prevention, things like that, so that Google can recognise the types of content it is. And that's just important because it essentially creates a bookmark through which your content can be recognised. But the key, absolute key, is looking at keywords. So you could go onto a tool called Google AdWords. That's a free tool. And you can look at what are the search terms in your area, your area of interest. They've got particularly high volumes of searches. So, for instance, hepatitis prevention might have a lot more searches than hepatitis treatment. And that gives you some words that you can introduce into your copy, the content of the website, that is going to be that's going to attract all of those visitors that are searching for using those keywords. So building in the keywords essentially means you've got the kind of content that Google recognises as popular and therefore pushes you right up the rankings. This is just an example. So it's a marketing agency called Planet Content, and if you can read that first paragraph, I'll read it out as well. Just to see how you feel that it reads. So it says, content marketing is riding on a wave right now, and searches for content marketing services in the UK are on the rise. We're coming to the end of 2012, a year which I believe has been pivotal in the acceleration of content marketing strategies. As the content marketing statistics for 2012 and 2013 projections below demonstrate, content marketing is set for further growth, which is great for content marketing strategists like me and other content creators. So it kind of reads okay, it reads a bit odd, but it kind of reads okay. But you can see how many times they've put the word content marketing in that first paragraph. They've got it right at the top in the green writing, they've got it in the title, 100 content marketing statistics, and they've got it at least 8 times in that first paragraph. So that just, when we're writing for websites, when we're writing the copy, that just shows how, although it might not read perfectly, we've actually introduced an optimization for a keyword, which in instance here is content marketing, which Google sees and sees how many times you've listed it, and means you are absolutely going to be optimized for that keyword within a Google search. So if you Google content marketing, something like this would come up very popularly.
So what you suggest is as many words like hepatitis you have in your website?
Yeah. So hepatitis is quite general. So if there's anything more specific, and this would go into the sort of AdWords, where you might look at other areas within hepatitis that people are searching for. So there might be something more niche, but absolutely, if it is generally about hepatitis, then you just want to introduce that copy or that word as much as possible within the content, in the headers, in the copy itself, to make sure that Google recognises that word, and means that for a hepatitis search, which is very general, you'll be boosted right up onto the page 1 ranking. And it's a very simple addition, so if you're writing or if you've got access to your website's content management system, you could go in and just spend some time rewording the